running fans, jumping fans, throwing fans, all around athletics fans. Welcome to Talking in Ovals. I'm Alex Cuesta. My partner in crime over there is Dave Hyatt. What's going on, brother?
I'm not sure if you saw this, but I thought it was kind of interesting that the American record holder at 3,000, 5,000, and 10,000 has decided to leave Bowerman Track Club. I'm talking about Grant Fisher.
Yes.
It's going to be interesting to see where he goes. To me, it was kind of a shocking move. He's had great success, even after an injury last year, coming back and running really, really fast at the end of the season. So that's going to be quite an interesting thing to see where Grant ends up. And I obviously wish him the best, but kind of a curious move.
He should go to Empire because we have a connection there, and then we can get him on the show. There we go. That's what I want him on. I want him at Empire. I think that's a great place. They're up and coming. They have, him and Eric Holt training together. Great coaches. Come on, Grant. Let's do it.
I have a feeling that he might be, and this is just pure speculation, he might be giving Mr. Ritzenheim a call, but I have no idea. That's just my, that's kind of seems like the place now where these stud guys go. So it's
would not be a bad move on his part. So today is Monday, October 23rd of 2023. I'm going a day ahead. And this is episode number 61. So we're excited here. We're slowly getting to episode 100, which is very exciting for us. But if you like what you hear today, give a like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials at Talking in Ovals. Last week, we had an awesome show. We had our first repeat guest last week, Jonathan Galt, staff writer for Let'sRun.com. Had a really cool show of just picking his brain, talking about all the things that happened over last year and the season. And it was just a fun show to really jump in. And we kind of nerded out a little bit. That's one of the rare shows where we really went a little more deep into track. And that was fun. But definitely go give that a listen. And Dave, we have no PRs this week.
Nope.
Which is sad because I know there are some races, so I'm kind of mad at some of our friends that we have a few, but
we'll get some coming up soon with the sectionals coming up this weekend for
we do.
So
we do. And you know what always heats up a little more in track because the teams are bigger. It's a lot easier to get a whole bunch of PRs from them. So I guess I don't be too mad at them. I'll be nice. I'll be nice, Dave. So this week though, we have before we go, I'd be remiss to mention again the River Rock and Run Relay. Our good buddy Adam Nalvin, over in Brick on November 4th. Go, still time to register, if I'm not mistaken. Go on that Facebook, River Rock and Run Relay in Bricktown, New Jersey, November 4th. Once again, it is a 5K. You could do it split. 2 people run a mile and a half, or you could just run the 5K straight. And afterwards, there will be some refreshments there. And it is a great run. Adam puts on a really good, he runs the meet very well. So definitely go out there. If you are in the Bricktown area, please go out, support Adam, support the run, and go do the race. So now, this week's guest, we are once again having a repeat guest on. And the best part about this, Dave, having our repeat guests on, our guests are freaking awesome. So I'm always pumped when we have a guest on. And this one is someone who, when we talked to him, I think me and you were just blown away because he's forgotten more about track and field than we probably know. And that's maybe not you because you're an encyclopedia, but at least me. So I'm excited to have back on Jeff Benjamin. He is a writer for Run Blog Run and so much more in the track world. What's going on, Jeff?
How you doing, guys? Thanks for having me. And by the way, no shame in finishing second to Mr. Galt. He is a remarkable writer as well. So
I don't think there's a first and second between you guys, to be quite honest.
He's top tier. He's a standard by which we all hope to aspire to, as I like to say.
I think the feeling is mutual.
And I'm sure Jonathan, if he heard you say that, would be sending it right back to you because you guys are both 2 people that stay dedicated to writing about this sport, which I think sometimes can be hard, right? Because you're not getting the giant fanfare that some of these other sports writers are getting, but it is great work. It's hard work, and it's work that we love exposing to people here because you guys, both of you, between, you, Jonathan Gall, Jim Lambert over in Jersey, you guys are the type of people that should be getting more notoriety. So again, we always appreciate you coming on because you're just a wealth of knowledge and so fun to listen to talk.
I greatly appreciate that. Really do. There's a lot of people help me along the way, and that's what I always think life's about,
Awesome. So fun. So let's get into this week's show because showing your good-natured side, You invited us to a pretty big and important event that is going on in the city in a week, right? Is it a week? About a week
1
and a
week
half
from Wednesday.
Today. Yeah, a week from Wednesday. On November 1st, the Marathon Week Legends Dinner is going on. Now, for those that don't know, the New York City Marathon is being run next week, and it is one of the biggest running events on the planet. I say, there's a few marathons that match up to it in terms of greatness, and it's just a major, major event. So I want to give you a chance, Jeff. What is the Marathon Week Legends Dinner, and what is it for?
Sure. Basically, it's actually become a really big Staten Island tradition. We always try to do a dinner every year around New York City Marathon Week. The idea is with the buzz of the event going on and runners coming out of all kinds of woodwork, and especially on that Saturday before the race, where they have that 5K USATF championship in Central Park.
Yeah.
It gives us an opportunity to really promote the sport. However, though, we started our dinner it's a little background here. In 1990, I was president of the Staten Island Athletic Club, and we had an annual dinner. And myself, my vice president, Jim Higgins, and Tom Cuff, my secretary, we made a decision to move it to Marathon Week or around the marathon. The idea is, besides the publicity and stuff, we wanted guests there. And the idea is that maybe some people would be in town, not necessarily those who were competing in the marathon. That would be very difficult. But, people were coming in, promotional stuff, working for shoe companies, et cetera. So that first year in 1990, when we had it, our major honoree was Staten Island's Abel Kiviat, who was 98 years old, who I mentioned to you before, the former 1,500-meter world record holder in 1912, the roommate of Jim Thorpe, Olympic silver medalist and Olympic gold medalist. Amazing. So we drove him in. He was a New Jersey guy now, so I had to drive him in from New Jersey, which was a wonderful thing. But we also had Fred LeBeau, who was in charge of the New York Roadrunners, New York Marathon. Alan Steinfeld, his worthy assistant, who later took over. Tom Fleming, who won the New York City Marathon twice, the New Jersey legend and my former coach.
Yep.
And a few other people. So as the years went on, the dinner kind of took off with the idea that we would have, legends come on in. So in the past, in the 90s especially, we had Jim Ryan. We had Sidney Marie. We had Steve Scott, Mark Nino. And by the way, Steve Scott and Mark Nino were working for ASICS. ASICS was the marathon sponsor. They were in town. That's how we got them.
Love it.
Okay. Bill Rogers, Catherine Switzer, Frank Shorter. We've had, we had a plethora of a lot of legends. So basically, we formed the Staten Island Running Association around 2016, and we decided to do a Legends Gala, and we had one in 2018 and 2019, where we had, Rod Dixon, Jeff Smith, Eamon Coughlin, and stuff like that. The last dinner we did was last year, where we were really lucky. We brought in Bob Beeman, the legendary long jumper.
Awesome.
And one thing we do with the dinner, it's a fundraiser. The Staten Island Running Association is a really grassroots. We do not have a lot of bucks. So we do rely on sponsors for athlete appearances. And the other thing we do is we want every kid in this borough under the age of 18 to come for free. We want them to come for free, get a dinner, but also have the opportunity to meet these Olympic and running and marathon legends. So last year we set up a program where and it's this year as well, for $750 gold medal sponsorship, 10 kids come for free. For $375, 5 kids come for free. That's the silver sponsorship. And the bronze sponsorship is $175 for 3 kids. And if somebody just wants to sponsor 1 kid, it's $75. Last year, we had 120 kids come for free.
That's amazing.
Okay. This year, we have surpassed that. We can bring a lot of kids in, more than 120. We are communicating with coaches of youth groups and high schools and stuff like that. And, pretty much we're raring to go. The guests that we have this year are even more
first off, the most important one over here, Dave Hyatt. You were
Dave Hyatt will be
enough.
Yeah.
Our very own co-host.
Dave,
you were gracious
Dave,
enough.
you're going to charge for your autographs again and charge for photos,
Kids get them free.
All right. I guess I'll pretend I'm a kid. So, Elliot Denman's going to be there too. I guess we can pass him off as a kid, right?
Jersey legend.
Yep.
There.
And, Elliot's a 1956 Olympian in the race walk. Yep. And Elliot will be there, but Tony Stainings will be there. He is a 2-time British steeplechaser who lives in Edison, New Jersey, and executive director of Job Corps. And Tony comes every year. Tony's college teammate at Western Kentucky was Nick Rose. Tony also, I believe, ran 1:03 for the half marathon in the early 80s. Okay. It gets better. We have Matt Centrowitz Sr. coming. And Matt Centrowitz Sr. is still the New York State high school record holder for the mile, 4:02 from 1973.
And I think a lot of people in this generation, doesn't realize that the Olympic champion, Matt Centrowitz, that we know, had a dad who was incredible as well. Like, that is a absolute legacy. And it's why that when, Matt Centrowitz was running in the Olympics and things like that, all the people were talking about him as if they've known him forever, because a lot of these people have known Matt Centrowitz forever since he was a kid around the sport. So that was such a cool, I don't think people realize how great of a moment that was, not only for Matt Centrowitz Jr., but also for his dad.
Yeah, well, it's funny. The dad did make the 76 Olympic team. He was young. We got eliminated, ran for Oregon, ran for Manhattan College for 1 year, then ran for Oregon. But in 80, he did make the Olympic team. He was in great shape, like Bill Rogers, like Craig Virgin, but they didn't run because of the 80 boycott.
Yeah.
And, and even Steve Scott. Steve Scott was pretty well, doing pretty good at that time. And it's one of those, you never know what happens. But in 1982, Matt Sr. actually beat Alberto Salazar at the Prefontaine Classic and set the American record at 5K. So I believe the time was 13:15. I think I'm not around that. Okay. But the one thing I don't want to, falsely advertise, but we have had great fortune here in the borough that whenever we've been able to bring Matt Sr. into something, Matthew Jr. comes. Okay. Will he come? I do not know. We are still working to see if that happens. Matt Jr. will be in New York that week because he's running the 5K. So, it's like Matt Sr.'s book, like father, like son. We'll see. But Matt Sr. is definite.
Awesome.
Yep. The other person we have Steve Jones, who in 1983 ran his first Chicago Marathon and dropped out. And he actually went up to the race director afterwards and said, here's my money back. And, those are the days of under the table money with the so-called amateurism. And the race director said, no, we don't operate that way. You keep it. So Steve finished, I believe, with a bronze medal at the World Cross Country in 1984, got down to 27 low for the 10K, and then ran the Chicago Marathon for the second time in 1984 and broke the world record, running 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 5 seconds. Wow. And his secret, he always said, was mud pies, Diet Pepsi, and something else, some other kind of concoction that I would never put in my body, And there's a funny story with Steve because in 1987, Steve eventually would run 2 hours, 7 minutes, 13 seconds, right? And in 1987, he had a bad year, and Reebok dropped him from his shoe contract the week of the New York City Marathon in 1988. And so Steve just put on a singlet, wore nondescript shorts, ran and won the New York City Marathon running 2 hours, 8 minutes, and 5 seconds. And within a day, Reebok re-signed him.
I mean, good that there's a little mud on their face there, that their logo was in front and center while he's winning.
Yeah, that's probably correct. I would not be surprised. Steve really didn't hold a grudge about it, by the way. He always felt business is business. That's why when he came back to him again, he was very receptive. He's very comfortable with them. And I think he's still with the company in some capacity to this day. So loyalty has been rewarded, which is really great. The other guest we have Bob Beeman, who's coming back. Elite being back into Staten Island. Jeremy Schaap on ESPN just 2 days ago did a piece on him where Bob is now playing the bongo drums with bands. Bob wanted to play the bongo drums at the dinner, but we just couldn't arrange that. But he said, hey, man, maybe I'll just grab a table and just start, bonging away.
Who's going to stop Bob Beeman from bringing them in? That's the real question. Right. Bob, if you're listening, who's going to stop you from walking those in and just playing while you're just sitting there eating dinner?
I can't say no. Nobody. So, and there's a funny story with Bob's appearance last year, which is the beauty of what we do. When these athletes show up, these legends, these kids do not know them.
No.
History, which I believe I talked about in the previous episode, is an art that is getting lost very quickly. As an educator who's retired, I feel a lot of it is tied into that Common Core stuff where kids are being taught to take a test. Whereas I believe Dave would agree with this. When we were kids, fourth grade, you'd have a break. You'd read like a little side book on the side. And that's how I read about Jim Thorpe.
Yeah.
That's how I read about Shoshana Truth. And, and that's how I read about, certain people that are not going to be on a test, but their stories were inspiring and gripping.
Yep.
You know, and so our job is to get these kids. So Beeman shows up last year. These kids don't know him from a hole in the wall. Okay, but we did a presentation, talked about his background. Bob did have a very rough life in the projects of Queens. Pet father who dipped on him, stepfather who didn't tell him that he was the stepfather till he was like 11. And Bob actually had reading issues up until 11th grade in high school. And we explained this to the kids. Also, he was suspended in kindergarten for punching a teacher. Kindergarten, okay? Wow. And he goes to the Mexico City Olympics and does the jump.
Yep.
So then what we did was we showed a slow motion video of the jump, and the kids were going nuts. And then we took out a tape measure, and with Staten Island Supreme Court Judge Michael Brennan verifying it, we measured 29 feet, 2.5 across the thing. After that presentation, those kids were all over Bob.
Of course.
Autographs, selfies, pictures. We call it the Beatlemania effect. Okay. So I said, Bob is returning this year, which is really, really great. On another note, whenever you see Bob, he's wearing a hat that says 8.90. That was my hat for 20 years. I bought it. The IOC site once in a while put stuff up for sale, hats and shirts. I saw the 8.90 with Bob Beeman on the side. I was like, wow, I want that hat. So I was always wearing it. So when I saw Bob at the World Championships in Eugene last year, I wore it. And then at the dinner, I was wearing it last year. And Bob says to my wife, hey, Jeff's got that nice hat. And so my wife said, do you want it? It's yours. Because I have so many hats anyway. So since that day, whenever Bob's on TV or doing something on Mile Split or Jeremy Schaff, he's wearing my hat. So I'd love to see a little thing at the bottom that says, like trademark Jeff Benjamin, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Jeff, okay. I wonder if you have this type of poll, if you could figure out a way, can we arrange to have a jump off between the best American high jumpers and the best jumpers in the NBA? Because I feel like that would be, I think the NBA might not do it, but I feel like that would be so much fun just to have a competition just so people can see how incredible these jumpers are.
I agree with you. And many years ago, again, I don't want to betray Dave's age. There was that show on ABC, The Superstars.
Absolutely.
They used to bring in the track, NFL.
The track guys.
They would do all different events.
Yeah.
Even football throwing and obstacle courses and stuff like that. And Carl Lewis, Herschel Walker, others, Edwin Moses was on these. And it was really fascinating to see. I think in the world of today, we're living in a world of great liability.
Too much money.
While I believe the track athletes would do it, I can't see an NBA saying you should do this.
Too much money, too much risk. Yep.
There would have to be a lot of money thrown around behind it, and have to be a very simple but very talked up event, right?
It is a great idea. The logistics, though, make it a big hurdle.
It's a great idea for us, not as much for the NBA guys if they get out jumped.
Even for the fans, yeah.
If they get out jumped, they might not be too happy, even though theoretically they should be out jumped because but yeah, that would be interesting. But doubt it would ever happen.
Yeah. And then the other guests we have, for the first time ever, we have the 1976-72 800 meter champion Dave Waddle of the United States.
So great.
And
is he wearing the hat? Is he wearing the hat?
No, the hat is actually in the United States Track and Field Hall of Fame.
As it should be.
Yes. So, as a matter of fact, Bob Beeman told me, hey, if I'm wearing my hat, Dave better wear his. So I might have to scout around for a golf cap, which is the kind of cap that Dave ran in.
Oh, yeah. What a race.
By the way, for those of you who are not familiar,
what a race.
For you, go on YouTube and just Google Dave Waddle and watch the race.
What a race.
Describe the race, but it is our hope and our belief that on Wednesday night, November 1st, when we show our audience that race, those kids are going to go nuts, just like they did with Bob Beeman.
And the thing is with that race floats around Facebook and Instagram every once in a while, just random pages, not even running pages, just pages of this is how you have to have heart and belief. Because there are very few things you can watch that the self-belief that Dave Waddle had to have to be able to run that race is superhuman because
I agree.
We've all run before. Yeah, getting down like that can shatter somebody easily.
Right. And just so you know, at the Olympic trials, he tied the world record. That's the good news.
Yeah.
But then there was bad news. He injured his knees. So his training was not that good. And then he got married and went on a honeymoon during that phase. which drove the Olympic coach, Bill Bowerman, crazy. Even media gave him a hard time. Okay. Yeah. And respectfully, Dave is one of the most humble human beings on the planet, but he shut them all up. And listen, once again, I don't want to reveal the race. If people have never seen it,
go watch it.
You need motivation. God, that's a race to watch.
And it was so brilliant, him wearing the hat, because that is what people remember all these years later too. Like, who's this guy? Who's this guy wearing this random white hat in an Olympic race?
Yep. And then there's a side note with that story as well. When he went on the medal podium to get his gold medal, they played the national anthem. He put his hand on his heart, but he didn't take the hat off. And as soon as he was done, media went up to him and said, "Were you protesting something?" Because that was going on in '68. He said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, you left your hat on." And Dave actually started crying. He goes, "Oh my God, I forgot." He got very emotional. He felt, he was really upset with himself.
I'm just happy that Dave followed the rule. If you wear something like sunglasses, a hat, you gotta win. It's kind of like if you're gonna stand out like that, then you gotta take the dub.
God willing. Yep. So, and then the other guests we have, as today actually, this date, 40 years ago in torrential rain, New Zealand's Rod Dixon, who was the 72 Olympic bronze medalist at 1500, but then in 76 finished fourth in one of the great 5,000s ever, the last Aviron, running his first real marathon, his first one. He had run one in Auckland earlier, was way back, and British athlete Jeff Smith, a Central Park favorite who came down a lot from Providence and raced here. Jeff, on First Avenue after the bridge, threw in a 440 mile, 16 miles, and was way out. And once again, if you watch the video, you don't even see anybody behind him. But Rod was somewhere back there. And Rod was having issues in the rain, cold day, grabbing his hamstring. But Rod also had written his splits on his hand.
Wow.
And in the old days, you use a Sharpie and put them on your hands. And Rod was aware that he was still running like 209 pace, like a 208 pace. He was running really well. And it wasn't even that Jeff slowed down. Later on, the New York Times would write that both Smith and Dixon were slowing down. It just wound up who was going to slow down the slowest. Also, while Jeff followed the blue lines like he always did in a Central Park race, like the Perrier 10K, Rod was cutting tangents. Okay. And literally right at the 26-mile mark, 0.2 to go, Rod just took off. And Eamon Coughlin, in an article I wrote, which will be published soon, said, people forget Rod was also a 147 800-meter man, and 333 for 1500. So, and Smith was no slouch either. Smith ran
early day
for the mile. Okay.
The early day Safan Hassan.
Yep. And so when Rod crossed the line, it was one of the most emotional victories. And Jim McKay of ABC News said the greatest finish in the history of marathoning. And Jeff Smith finished 6 seconds later. By the way, setting the record for the fastest marathon by a first timer. He ran 209.06. Rod ran 208.59. And Jeff fell to the ground exhausted. So you truly had, like ABC Sports would say, the thrill of victory and the agony of defeat.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
P.S. Jeff never down on himself, would go on to win the Boston Marathon in 84 and 85. So no slouch either. And we will be having Jeff Smith and Rod Dixon at the dinner as well. And the major focal point of the night will be the anniversary of Rod Dixon's 40th win. We have prepared a presentation that is classified top secret. Only 3 of us know, and we're getting ready to do that. But I don't know if this will help you, Dave. And we will have a videographer there. So there will be a video of some sort eventually posted somewhere. Okay? But if anybody's in the metropolitan area, we're the only game in town that does this with the legends for whatever reason. And like I said, the fact is that getting these kids in who need all inspiration in their lives and people to look up to in a good way, can't go wrong with this. We also have the 4-time winner of the New York Boston Marathon, Bill Rogers, come. Bill's always a regular, and Bill always comes. And, he will be there as well. Bill will be bringing his friend Joe Martino, who years ago was a sub-15-minute 5K guy, which is dime a dozen in the 70s. Joe also ran the first New York City Marathon, one of the surviving 9 people from the first New York City Marathon. And Joe has also written a book, which, he'll have for sale at the dinner as well. So, and at this point, we may get more guests. We are still scoping around. Like I said, with the influx, especially of elite athletes at the 5K level coming in, if they happen to be in a day earlier and want to come, we could hopefully arrange that. So, you never know what happens. I really don't want to throw names out there, but we are talking with people because I don't want to guarantee.
Yeah, of course.
But the names I did mention are guaranteed. So,
and that's so awesome. Honestly, like just to hear all those legends. And if you're listening back, go rewind for a little bit. Stop every single time he says a name and go type them in on a search engine.
Yeah, Google them. Find a video.
Yeah, go find the video. Go find, go to their Wikipedia. As much as Wikipedia isn't trusted, they usually take it from like World Athletics or some of their real bios. So go look these people up. These people are some of the greatest athletes of all time, not just in our sport, of all time. And they're going to be in one place. And if you are in the Staten Island area, you have the opportunity to go meet them. So go meet them. Go meet Dave, the most important person there. Go meet Dave. And but yeah, no. And then obviously go meet Jeff, because Jeff will be the one over there talking and knowing every single individual in that room. Because and if it's someone that you need to know in running, Jeff Benjamin knows him. So, definitely go out there, have a great time. I'm sad to be able to miss this year. I'm going to make sure that the moment I know the date next year, I'm going to mark it on my calendar.
There's always next year. And
yes,
it's funny because people are now giving me ideas for next year. I'm like, hey, we have a week and a half to go for this year. Let's do this year. Cross this bridge.
Let me get through this event first.
It is going to be an absolute blast. I mean, I'm so excited to meet some of my idols and people that I've read about and have, dreamed about meeting. Like most people want to meet, like baseball players.
Right.
But like since I've been a kid in this sport, this opportunity is something that I cherish, and I'm beyond grateful for this invite.
Oh no, thank you, David. It's going to be wonderful. One thing, being the track geek that I am, I go on eBay and scope out the magazines and cards and stuff. So I like to get my autographs as well. And one thing I'll mention, and Dave, you could say you're a kid because this is for the kids, but I got a feeling we might have some left over. Thanks to a generous donor, we'll have 200 Bob Beamon Olympic cards.
That's incredible.
Which we had last year as well. Bob will sign them. Basically goes around, signs them. We will also have, I believe, 120 Dave Waddle Olympic cards.
Oh, that's awesome.
So we were able to find a dealer who sold them in a lot, of a few hundred. And so they're for the kids. So just tell them you're a kid and feel free.
Dave, tell them you're a kid times 2. Sneak.
No, not that. We also just got a shipment in of brand new Talking in Ovals cards with our QR code on the back of them.
Yeah, you should bring them.
Oh, I will.
Yeah, you should definitely bring them and put them all out at the tables and stuff. We're also lucky. The bar called Jam Bar. I don't know if that you guys have seen that recently. Jam Bar.
I've heard of it. Yeah,
it is owned and created by the wife of Maxwell of Canada, who was the creator of Power Bar in the early 80s.
Okay.
Maxwell was a marathoner. He created the Power Bar. The original Power Bar was like all natural, had brown rice powder on it. You went to expos, Boston, New York, in the 85 to 93, they were always around. But then Power Bar was bought by Nestle, and Nestle kind of did their thing with it. It was never the same.
No.
And I was actually at a running camp this past summer with Steve Spence of Shippensburg.
Okay. Yeah,
Great coach, bronze medalist, 1991 World Championship. And his daughter is Neely Spence, the great runner, who just set a world record a few months ago, pushing her son in the wheelchair, I believe, to like a 5:20 mile, which is the world record.
Incredible.
Pushing somebody in a wheelchair on the track. I mean, not jogger. Yeah. So anyway, Neely gave me the bar, and I tasted, oh my God, it tastes just like the Power Bar. I thought I was Back to the Future. And she said, no. She goes, this is Jam Bar. And so I did my research, and Maxwell, the husband, passed away about 5-6 years ago, I believe. So his wife created Jam Bar. Proceeds go to charity, all natural. I reached out to her and their company. They are slowly growing it. They don't want to do too much too soon, but we will have Jam Bars at the dinner as well.
And
so,
we would love
putting them out at the tables as well.
Speaking of, since they're a running family, we would love to have the creators of Jam Bar on the show.
Oh, that'd be great. You could maybe Steve Spence also.
Yeah, we would love to do that. We would love to have
Great
Steve
too.
Spence on. And
Yeah.
I just want to find out, who does Dave have to sweeten up in order to get our QR code in the back, where instead of you playing a video, our giant QR code's in the back there so people can go.
Maybe next year. Maybe next year.
Yeah, you know what it is? We're already prepared. Like I got everything
Yeah,
locked
of
down.
I'm joking
But
around.
also,
I'm just
well, here's the
messing
thing.
around, Jeff.
While I am the chairman of the Staten Island Running Association, I answer to a board.
Yeah.
And I have a great board. You know, whatever differences we have are fundamental. They're never on a personal level, which is great. You know, and it's funny because, you know, even last year, like when somebody said, why are we bringing Bob Beeman in? But then when we showed the presentation with the jump, the same person on my board came up to me and said, now I know why you brought Bob Beeman in. This was fantastic.
Because he's Bob Beeman. That's why we're
right.
Yeah, because
Right.
but
It's our job. It's our job and our duty to like get the greatness of these people out there so that people remember them and get inspired. And, you know, the one thing with Beeman, like I said, you know, Bob had writing issues right through high school, yet after his jump, the Webster Dictionary created the word Beeman-esque.
Mm-hmm.
And last year at the dinner, he gave a speech where he said, imagine that. I didn't know how to read or write. And now there's a word in the dictionary named for me.
That's so
That's pretty
incredible.
awesome.
You know,
That's so incredible.
You can't make it up. It's very, very remarkable. So, you know, but like I said, to the crowd out there, if anybody wishes to come, the dinner is $75 a person. We have an Eventbrite site. We can do check the old-fashioned way, but they really got to reach out to me. On Sunday night this week, the Eventbrite site shuts down.
So, Jeff, how do people reach out to you just so we can get that out there? What's the best way to reach out to you?
Sure. I'll give you an email if that's okay.
Yeah,
All right. It is the letters R, B as in boy, E, N as in Nancy, JA726 at AOL.com.
Love it.
Okay,
If
that's
you
probably
wanna
the best
go,
bet.
reach out to 'em.
And
Yeah.
you know, guys, I'm on Facebook. Somebody wants to private message me, Jeff Benjamin, Staten Island. That's fine. There will be an article published in tomorrow's Staten Island Advance, SILive.com, which will have a whole layout of the guests and legends who are coming.
Very cool.
My phone number will be listed in that article as a contact. So, you know, feel free. But like I said, we just want to let people know the Eventbrite site does shut down this Sunday. After that, it goes from 75 to 85 at the door, cash only. And if we're sold out, we might not be able to get you in. We have had two events in the past where we were sold out. It is never a pleasant situation.
So
But unfortunately, it's that person's fault.
You can go to the doors, but just be aware that there's a good chance that you might not.
Yeah, we could be sold out. We will try to accommodate you and fit you. Like I kind of call it the late penalty because we're saying 85 cash, not a check, not credit, 85 cash. And if we can fit you, great. If we can't fit you, we got to send you on your way.
So I don't think you mentioned, you know, you have a current great runner coming, Ajay Wilson. She'll be there.
No, unfortunately, Ajay will not be with us this year.
Oh, that's unfortunate. Okay.
Yeah. We had some communication with her, but I think our schedule, unfortunately, doesn't work for her this year. Which is very
I'm giving out fake news. Sorry.
She was fantastic. Yeah, she was fantastic last year. So, you know, it's just, you know, the way scheduling works with things.
Of course.
Yeah, it's tough. And considering she's a current training athlete, a current fantastic athlete.
Correct.
You know, so
Correct.
it happens that way, especially with, and, you know, Dave mentions this all the time, and I'm going to give it to them with the way the schedule's working. Ajay's trying to become an Olympian again. So
Absolutely.
You know,
And
this
it's
is
funny
her
'cause
goal.
one guy who would have loved to come is Paul Chalimo. Paul, we would have loved to come. We are tight with him. But Paul, you know, we invite him to lunch and we invite him, you know, to these events. He goes, Jeff, I got to focus on what I got to do.
Of course.
And I totally understand. Totally understand.
100%.
Yep. So and it's so funny because one athlete who does have laser-like focus, and I like to try to defend him because I know he gets mixed reviews. Jakob Ingebrigtsen is a very focused individual.
Oh, absolutely.
And I got to meet him. I got to meet him, spend a lot of time with him at the Prefontaine Classic 4 weeks ago. And he struck me as like Herb Elliott. And Herb Elliott, for those you don't know, from 1960 to 1964 was probably, some people call him the greatest miler who ever lived. Undefeated in the 1500 and the mile.
That's amazing.
Shattered the world record for 1500 by almost 3 seconds, I believe. Destroyed the mile record by 2 seconds. Won Olympic gold in 64. Okay. I'm sorry, 1960 in a row. Herb Elliott's coach was Percy Cerutty, who was the eccentric Australian guy, very motivational, but like you had to buy all out into Percy Cerutty, and that was it. And for that time period, Elliott bought in. He was laser-like focused to the point where, let's say he arrived at a meet the day before, Cerutty would have him locked in a hotel room where he did not come out. Okay? He did not want Elliott shaking hands with other athletes because he felt it was a waste of energy. Okay? And it's funny because Herb Elliott retired from the sport, I believe, at the age of 23. Okay? Wow. He had just had it, like he was like, once you realize when you wake up that you have a little doubt, it's time to go. So he actually was one of the few who left on top in all of sports, And, I always respected Elliott, reading about him and interviewing him at one time and talking with him, and he's still around. So when I saw Jakob Ingebrigtsen, he strikes me as that same individual. I actually asked him, did he have any idols in running track and field? And he basically said no. He said he really didn't want to be unduly influenced by any of them. He didn't say it in a bad way. And it was funny because Steve Cram was there walking around, former world record holder in the mile, great friend to the sport, BBC guy. And Jakob and Steve were talking and hanging out, and I'm sure Jakob knew who he was, but Jakob's not going to study his training. Jakob's not going to study the history. He feels he wants to make his own mark. So,
he certainly is.
And with everything going on now with his father,
it's crazy. That's
crazy story.
But I'll tell you what, like many of these athletes, I didn't see him say no to an autograph to a kid after the meet. I did not see him say no to take a picture with a kid after the meet. He was courteous, but he's laser-like focused.
Jakob, I think,
misinterpreted.
I think he's a guy that gets it. He's a guy that gets it. He understands what he's there for. He knows the bigger star he becomes, the more he seems like he wants to get back to the sport. Because, we talked about it, I think, a few weeks ago. He had no reason to tell Yared Nuguse, hang on me. He didn't. And he meant it. When he told Yared Nuguse, sit on my hip, I'll get you an American record. And I think, he sees himself as a leader in the sport now. He knows who he is.
Right. Now, I was at that press conference.
Yeah.
Okay? What is interesting is that I thought that in his own way, and maybe he was being awkward, I think he was trying to make a joke in a funny way.
I think so too.
But a funny way. And it's funny because, let's say a colorful character like Steve Scott, or trying to think who else was colorful, Jeff Atkinson, guys like that. If they had said it, everyone would be rolling.
Yeah.
Jakob said it, and like I said, I could tell from his body language, I think he was just trying to be funny. And, and I tell you what, it might have motivated Nuguse.
Listen.
And I have to tell you, after the conference, him and Nuguse were hanging out and chilling and talking with each other, like no bad body language. So I know the media wants to do stuff, and in our sport was always desperate for attention. Mm-hmm. I know the media really wants to put stuff out there and, try to do something, but I'm calling it as I saw it, like it was in my interpretation. If somebody else was at that press conference and they feel otherwise, they have every right to feel that way. But that's how I felt when I saw it. I also try to look at it, as the former school teacher, looking at a kid, when a kid's sometimes a little awkward in the classroom with a remark or something, not meaning anything, but, maybe being blown out of proportion, stuff like that, and, like I said, that's how I saw it. I found him to be a upstanding young individual, just laser-like focused, Herb Elliott mold, just do it. And hey, with all due respect, Seb Coe was the same way. When Seb Coe was racing, I remember Steve Scott giving an interview. He was like, boy, I don't know why Seb never hangs out with me, Walker, Sidney, Marie, John Gregoric, Jim Spivey at, the post-race parties and all that. And, and Coe one time diplomatically once said, he goes, I'm not a really big fan of being friends with my competitors.
Yeah.
You could be friendly without being friends. You don't have to be.
Yeah. And Seb,
you could be friendly while you're there.
Yeah. Seb in an interview once said, he goes, some of the American psychologists say you should have good feelings towards them. He says, and Seb came up with a great line. He goes, I'm not really sold on that on the field of battle.
I love it.
And
that's why Seb Coe is one of the greatest of all time.
Yeah. And I've seen athletes, adjust to that kind of attitude, before his loss in the 800 in 1980 in Moscow. And when he lost, Seb Coe was known as a time trial guy. Oh, he runs world records, but competing is different than world records.
Absolutely.
And Seb showed that when he won the 1500, I guess 6 days later. And Seb showed it again in 84 when he came back from that 83 year plagued with illness and injury, where he came back. And, listen, I saw even Jim Spivey, friends with him forever. And, Jim Spivey got a bronze medal in 87 in the World Championships. But then in the Olympic trials in 88, he finished fourth in the trials on his home track in Indiana, losing the spot to Mark Deedy, an Indiana teammate who he actually was a landlord for him renting a house.
So they actually had the U.S. trials somewhere other than Eugene?
That was the last session. So, Jim, I believe after that realized he had to become a competitor, and by 92, when he went to the trials, my traditional get together with Jim would always be, if it was a regular meet, it would be like, yeah, we can get together for lunch in the morning or go for a run together, But the Olympic trials in 92, he did not want to be seen leading up to his final. He had to get laser-like focus, and his two coaches, Mike Durkin, 76 Olympian, and Ken Popejoy, an outstanding Masters runner, told him, you got to pretend like these guys want to break into your house and steal something. What are you going to do about that? And that was Jim's mentality in 92 when he won the trials in New Orleans.
I love it.
See, I've actually heard some people kind of say similar things about Jakob, like, oh, he's a time trialer. Look, he hasn't won the 1500 in the last two worlds. I'm like, listen, like, it's a totally different kind of race. He's clearly the best guy out there. So, I mean, like, what do you think when you hear that narrative?
Yeah, it's interesting. Dave and I are spoiled. Guys like Steve Scott, Eamon Coughlin ran all year round. Mm-hmm. How they did it, I do not know. They raced unbelievably well indoors. They raced great outdoors. If you see Craig Virgin's running record. Craig Virgin came out with the book Virgin Territory, autobiography, highly recommended, very motivational. Despite the fact that Craig battled childhood surgeries to his bladder, this is the 1960s, okay, and illness and sickness his entire life, he still did what he did, winning 2 world cross-country championships, only American ever to win, and he won 2, running low 27s 10K, low 13s for 5K. But at the end of the book, it's his racing career from high school till he stopped, I believe, at 39. The book for the records is about 17 pages, front back. All distances from the mile up to the marathon. He ran Boston. He ran Boston 3 weeks after winning his second world cross country. Adidas came to him after the Worlds and said, hey, you want to run Boston? 3 weeks he trained up and down the hills in Lebanon, Illinois, where he lived, went out there and ran 2:10 and finished second to Seiko and beat Bill Rogers. Just remarkable. Some of these people are remarkable. But in today's world, there's a lot of specialization. Like when I look at Galen Rupp, who I think is a great athlete, right? And once again, he's focused individual, okay? So he's not making friends with anybody. Some of you might remember he had that little brouhaha with Meb Klefesky in 2016 at the trials. He's there to make a team. It's a warrior mentality. But, the one thing is, like, Galen just ran, Chicago, where he ran a 2:08. But, of all things, that time doesn't qualify him for the Olympic Games. Can you believe that?
Wild. Wow. Yeah, sub 2:10 doesn't automatically get you in.
I know. But having said that, I guess my 1980s self would say, you don't see Galen running a 5K or 10K tune-up. You don't see him doing a half marathon, But that's the 80s style. I don't know if the guys should do that today. I don't know how their training goes.
Oddly enough, love him or hate him, Alberto Salazar probably would have had him doing that. Because that was more, Alberto had a lot of his people do those types of tune-ups.
Right.
Where we would have seen Galen maybe run a fast 10K about a month before the marathon and come back. So, again, Alberto Salazar is rightfully not in the sport anymore. But if you're talking about that style with Galen Rupp, we've seen Galen do that when he was even leading up to the 10K when he got his silver medal. He ran a few tune-up 5Ks and things like that leading up to it.
Right, because I remember in 1984, Carlos Lopez of Portugal, who was 37 years old, okay? Carlos did win gold medal in the World Cross Country that year. He was a silver medalist in 1976 behind Lasse Viren in the 10K. But he battled some injuries. But like Rod Dixon, Carlos started moving up in distance. Get a little older, the speed's not there anymore, but all that strength you built up could possibly jump you to something. Yeah. And like about a month before the LA Olympic Games, where Lopez would run the marathon, Fernando Mamede of Portugal set the world record in the 10K. I think it was 27:12, but somebody can correct me. Lopez finished right behind him. And that spurred TV commentator Frank Shorter, the 1972 Olympic champion, when he was interviewed by ABC before the men's marathon, who do you think's going to win? He said, I think you got to watch out for Carlos Lopez. He just ran 27 whatever for 10K. And Carlos won the race. Huh. So as a fan, I actually love seeing the people jump up in distance. Rod is one of my all-time idols with that. 147, 333, 1500, low 13s, 5K, under 28, 10K. He was the world record holder in the half marathon. I think it was 101. Then he ran the marathon. That rainy day in New York, 208.59. You know, and when Rod turned 40 years old, he ran 402 for an outdoor mile. You know, so 40, just unbelievable. And one athlete who put it all out there, and I was sworn to secrecy. That's why I didn't write anything. But Ben Blankenship.
Yeah.
That Ben's known as 1500-meter guy, but now he's with Ryan Hall, and he's been training, going up in distance. And I believe, I saw Ben's girlfriend at the Prefontaine meet with Ben there. We were talking, hey, how's it going? What are your plans? And he said, well, I'm going to run a marathon soon, but I'm not going to tell you what it is. I go, yeah, no problem. So I waited like everyone else and then saw the Instagram result where he qualified for the trials.
Yeah.
And the question is, Blankenship with that 332, right? Is he 332?
I believe so, yeah.
I think Ben has a 332, yep.
With that turnover, but now with the strength of all these years behind him, at a trials race in Orlando, where, by the way, they're still arguing with the athletes over what time the race is going to go off.
It's ridiculous. Right? Just put it in the morning like they're asking.
The course is not an easy course. There's there's controversy with that, with USA selecting Orlando. Okay. Could Blankenship get in the top three? And, I also feel, I don't know, like the top three in Orlando, male, female, they might not have the standard, but they'll have an opportunity maybe to find another marathon somewhere, say London, maybe it's flat, So I do not know, but I love Ben Blankenship. I think his focus and determination has always been like dead on.
It'll be interesting to see how Connor Mance is going to do at the trials, because there's a target on his back now. He's the top American over in Chicago, ran a really good time. It will be interesting to see, like, this is his real big breakout. A lot of people predicted he was going to run well, right? I think no one's surprised that he did it. But you had Galen Rupp there. You have someone like Blankenship. You have a lot of good marathoners that are going to be at that trial. I think Connor Mance is going to handle it. I think he's been a really good runner for, a long time, even though he's a young man. I feel like I've heard about him the last decade.
Oh, yeah.
Feels like he's been around forever. But it's going to be interesting to see, like, he's going to be the guy. There's going to be a target on his back. He's going to be one of the guys expected to make the top three and, make this team. Like, there's, at this point, we want Connor Mance should be an Olympian, right? So it's interesting to see how guys handle this pressure.
Yeah, no, it is fascinating because, as everybody knows, the marathon is the most unpredictable event.
Oh, absolutely.
Out of all the events to predict with the so-called experts, it is not an easy event to predict. Weather, how you feel when you wake up that morning, your fluid intake, all your little idiosyncrasies, stuff like that, really do come into play. I have to tell you, on a personal note, I have a special affinity, obviously, for Neely Spence, Steve's daughter. In 1991, Steve peaked at that world championship to win a bronze coming out of nowhere. And it was a hot as heck day. And Steve was in last place for 10 miles, hydrating.
Crazy.
And on mile 20, he started eating up people. And then he got the bronze. And, Neely has that DNA, that MO of her dad, who was always a patient marathoner. Patient.
Which is hard to be.
Yep. Having said that, like we said, it's the most unpredictable event. And once again, with Orlando, who knows? I've been to Disney World in February. Sometimes it's 40 degrees. Sometimes it's 90 degrees.
Yep.
And, recently, as some of you know, the athletes have petitioned Max Siegel and USATF to maybe make the starting time even earlier, not only for the weather, but they need a qualifying time to run in the marathon in Paris.
Yeah.
And so they're like, listen, I might win the trials and run 2:14, but I'm not going to get to Paris.
Yeah, I don't know why they just don't capitulate to what the athletes want. Like,
I don't know, but it happened in 2000 as well. We had Rod DeHaven. Do you remember that name?
Yeah.
He ran well and he didn't go. And it's it's the standard as is, but respectfully, these athletes have now had a year and a half to know the standard, to come up with a plan to try to do it. But I think that whoever finishes in the top 3 in Orlando doesn't have the standard. Guess we look forward to seeing them in London two months later, where hopefully they can get it.
You know what the tedious part is? And if I'm an athlete that's trying to get this, why are you setting us up for failure? Like, this should be a thing. The USATF should be doing a friendly course. I'm sorry, to make sure we get a whole bunch of people with the standard, so we have backups and we can send a good group. It doesn't matter if it's a more simple course to get it. You get the standard, you get the standard. That's why they're going to possibly go to London. Like, so to me, it's like the USATF putting it somewhere that's difficult like that, in a place that the weather is so unpredictable. It's like, why are you setting your athletes up for potential failure? And it's a little egg on your face that you're probably not going to get any athletes to qualify for the Olympics. Right. Your biggest event.
Yeah, Alex, I do agree with you. I do know a little bit about this stuff. If you want to host a USATF event, you must apply paying a lot of money just for the application fee. If you get rejected, they keep the fee. That turns off a lot of towns.
Sounds about right.
Yeah. And by the way, the Olympic Games are the same way, and the World Championships are the same way. Okay, they have a bidding process. Okay, then with the bidding process, television becomes the major factor. Yeah. If the time period is not changed for Orlando, it is because NBC executives want that race live, and that fills their time slot in the afternoon on a Saturday.
Yeah,
the sport. That, they're not going to put it prime time.
No.
If they put it on too early in the morning, that affects their, news people and stuff. So I'm not defending this. These are the factors that are taken into play. But I mean, is it possible that maybe what they might do is run the race early in the morning, then show a tape delay during that slot on NBC? But with the internet today, with everyone knowing,
everyone's going to know the result.
The ratings will not be as well for NBC unless it's a live event.
I just think it's going to suck because the marathon is one of the events that, like, we're all junkies, right? If we're somewhere, though, and we throw, like, the end of the marathon on, the last 6 miles, whatever, last 10K, and someone's watching it, like, this person's running my PR every single mile. And that's kind of, and they already know, like, everyone knows you're a runner or whatever. And that kind of gets people to sit down and go, oh, okay. And then to hear at the end of the race, oh, the winner didn't qualify for the Olympics, but that was their goal today. It's kind of like, then why the hell did we watch this? Like, like a casual fan would look at it. We're going to all enjoy it because it's like, it's a marathon. It's awesome. But a casual fan looking at it going, wait, I thought this was the Olympic trials. Didn't this person win the trials?
Yeah.
Did it?
It's funny, in 1988, when the Olympics were held in Seoul, South Korea, almost everything over here was shown tape delay, and basically media actually agreed to blackouts back then. You could do that in 1988.
Right.
In 1992, Dave might remember this. They were held in Barcelona. NBC came up with the Olympic triple cast.
I love that.
We probably watched religiously.
I had 3 different TVs out. I had them all on.
Yeah. What happened was you paid for a package. Mm-hmm. You saw 12 hours live, followed by 12 hours replay for all the days. And you could pick track and field. You could pick all of them. You pick boxing. So I only picked track and field. I obviously didn't do what Dave did. But
No, I had track, but I had like different TVs for different things.
Yeah. And, like I said, we got to see the Olympic 1500 where Fermín Cacho of Spain won, running 50 for the last 400 back then. Got to see it live, and, like I said, but by, that time, the world had become cableized, as I like to say. So today it's different. And to do a tape delay today, sports execs on the TV channels, I think, are absolutely shaking their heads because good luck getting a good price for, Coca-Cola, Pepsi, or Burger King, whatever, putting commercials on during that.
Right. And especially now, with every network has an app, like everything is on Peacock.
Right, Peacock.
So. But I have a kind of a strange question that I've debated with my friends for a while. So I'm like, all right, who's the best person to ask? I'm like, I'm going to ask Jeff. You mentioned 1976 5K race, right?
Right, yeah, last Iberia.
All right. Yep. Do you think, tragically, if Steve Prefontaine was still around, that he would have been able to win that race? I've debated
now you're going to put me, and
I've debated that.
I'm friends with Belinda, so she's going to kill me. All right. the way the race turned out, Free would have to have done what he did in Munich. 4 laps to go, he had to take off like a bat out of hell.
Right.
They were slower in Montreal, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And if Steve would have waited for a lap to go, forget it. I don't think so. You see the kickers in that race, Dick Quacks, Dixon, all these other guys who had wheels on them that Steve did not, right? I'm sorry to say I do not think Steve would have medaled. I just don't. Like I said, even taking the lead with 4 laps to go again, I might have strengthened out the field and everything, but I just don't know. One thing I found out recently, this might be a bombshell, and if media hears this, you can go with it, but I was actually informed by people that at 72, Steve did have a sciatica issue that he did not really talk about, but it was there. How severe it was for him in the 72 race, I do not know, because he still ran a great race.
Now, did Bowerman know, and is that possibly one of the reasons why he didn't go traditional and kind of go earlier and lead the race? Good
question.
Because if they knew, that might have been the reason why they didn't go out and do what he did at the American trials, which would have, I don't know if he would have beaten Lasse Viren. I'm going to put this out there as a full. Lasse Viren beat everybody in every which way. If you try to string him out,
at the Olympics, though, at the Olympics
is different. But Viren was that's the type of runner that he was. Whatever race you threw at him in his prime, he ended up winning. So I don't know if Steve would have been
like Mo Farah.
Right?
In that sense.
Listen, that will always be a question that haunts all of us who
that's unfortunate.
Are in love with the legacy of Steve Prefontaine, including myself. It's one of those if. And I teach a sports class where I actually show a couple of the movies. And the one question I asked the kids was if he had lived, they didn't know nothing about sports. I'm like, 1 year later, 76 Olympics, do you think he would have beat Lasse Viren? And we get into arguments in the class. Even kids who know nothing about the sport, they're like, he finished 4th the last time.
I would have.
Yeah, he would have won. He would have won. And we get caught up with that heart and head fight. The head versus the heart. That is a hauntingly perplexing question, and will never be answered. Obviously,
I know. Right. And even if you would have never beaten Viren, just the rivalry that those two would have had for years on end that we were robbed of sucks. Because
but having said that, Lasse did not race pre. Between 73 and 75. He didn't race many people. No. So that adds to situations, so to speak.
The mystique. I mean, Pre was trying to get races and Viren wouldn't show up. And
Yep. That was the last race in 75. And, I don't know. But their generation is amazing because look at the 72 trials. I think the Olympics were 1 month later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So 76 trials, Olympics were 1 month later.
Yeah.
So I always bring up Bill Rogers, Frank Shorter, right? Okay. They ran the Olympic marathon. And then a few days later, they ran the 10K. And if I remember correctly, Bill did get the 3rd spot, but he gave it up to concentrate on the marathon. Mm-hmm. And Bill injured his foot at that point, where Montreal did not turn out well for him at all, unfortunately. But even with Shorter, Shorter losing to Vladimir Chapinski in 1976 in Montreal, what if the trials were in March? Could it have peaked? Potentially. But, like I said, this generation of runners, and some of them will be at our dinner, Jeff Smith, Rod Dixon, Bill Rogers, they raced everywhere, almost 40 times a year at a high level, year in, year out. And isn't that amazing? That's what's unreal about these guys.
But you know what, though? It's this generation, I understand with if you have a shoe deal or whatever, a company, they want to protect you, right? So that's why they race so much less. But it's we go from high school running a ton. We go from college running a ton. Then all of a sudden, if you make it pro, don't run. Don't run. Pick and choose. Don't run indoor. Don't think about running indoor. But you remember, maybe 8 races, 6 races in outdoor and call it a season. It's what? It's insane. Don't race anymore.
It's funny you mention that because Kara Goucher came out with a book last year, and she wrote to fulfill a Nike contract where it was almost ending. She had to run some kind of race somewhere, some kind of distance. And she went to a race that was literally a USATF, but it was a fun run. And she ran it to make sure that her contractual obligation was reached. The contracts have a lot to do with it. But also specialization today. The idea of having a training phase that's really long, maybe an interval phase that's really long, to build up. Like with Jim Spivey, who I mentioned before, Jim would run indoors at the Millrose games and run the Wanamaker Mile once in a while. He never ran well. He was always there to just get the work in, because in his program, he wanted to be ready in May, June, July, and August. If it wasn't an Olympic year or World Championship year, it was still a Europe year where you got paid to run in Oslo and Rieti and all these other places. So he felt that that was his worth. Eamon Coughlin, however he did it, Rod Dixon, Steve Scott, they raced all out all the time. It really is a remarkable testament to those guys. Mary Decker Slaney also, she raced everywhere. And by the way, look at the race results. Look who finished 2nd through 10. You'll probably see those same runners running everywhere also.
Right.
So, like one athlete, some people don't know this, the sports agent Ray Flynn. Ray Flynn was a great miler. I don't know if anybody's aware of that. He is the Irish record holder for the outdoor mile, 3:49. Okay. Ray was always in the top 5 in all these races with Steve Scott and Eamon Coughlin and Sidney Marie and Spivey and John Gregoric, Steve Ovett, Coe, and Ray was great, but he was always either 2nd through 8th. But he raced just as much as those guys, And yeah, there was under the table money, without a doubt. But, they didn't hold back. They didn't say, all right, I'm going to do a 4-week phase. I'm not showing up to a race anywhere. To be honest, I think the only reason they would not show up was if they had a little bit of an injury. Right. They were just rested a bit, I mean, believe there was one year, Bill Rogers, I think it was 1981. He ran about 43 races that year from 5K and up,
Wow.
So, and, listen, these guys made pretty good money for that era. There was also a lot of money to be made. It was not unusual for a race director to go up to somebody who finished 8th in a world-class mile and be like, come to my town road race. I'll give you some money under the table. And they'd come have a fun, and fans knew who they were.
Yeah.
That's another issue too. You put on a road race today. Let's say you would want a Meb Klefesky, Galen Rupp, in their prime to show up. How much you paying?
Yeah, it's a lot.
Do you have the money? Yeah. It's very difficult to do. And, sadly, some races, don't have the level of the world-class athletes that they used to, but they still have thousands of people running the race. And the race is making money. But there are some races that have moved in a direction where they're like, you know what? We're making a lot of money, but we're not going to do prize money at the races anymore. We have 4,000, 5,000 runners anyway. Which
sucks, right? Because that was part of the fun part. But, and then you can get these bigger time athletes that are like, you know what? I'm not going to make a ton from this, but I'm going to make a pretty penny. Let me go do this because I've done it year after year. It's my hometown or it's close enough in my state. I want to go do something. But if there's no money there and you're a professional athlete, you're not going to go do charity.
Right. No, I agree.
And not doing that because that you risk getting injured. So, so I want to jump. We've been going for a little bit. I love this conversation, but you talked about how unpredictable the marathon is. So I am going to ask you to predict the New York City Marathon coming up on November 5th. So I don't want you to predict the winner, but what I want you to do is maybe give us some names on the men's and women's side, if you can, of who we may be looking at potentially, or the elite runners that you're going to see at least bunched up for 20 miles. Because usually you get about 20 miles of bunched up running the elites. Your top 10 will stay together. And then at mile 20, once everyone's legs start falling to shit, you see who's going to step out and break out. So give us some names to look for.
Yeah, I'm a bad boy because I don't know much about the women's field. I will be very honest with you. I really haven't studied it. And there's been, as with the men's field, people have been pulling out left and right at a New York City Marathon.
Right.
Okay. For whatever reason, for the men like Evans Chibet, who won in 2022, he pulled out. The 2-time world silver medalist, Mosenet Gemermu, pulled out. A few other people pulled out. So New York has become more unpredictable for an unpredictable distance. Add into it the New York Marathon course. Hardest hill on the course is the first mile going up to Verrazano. People don't realize it's subtle, but it's up. And then you got those hills in Central Park.
And that hurts.
And it's interesting because, you had Rod Dixon run 2:08:59. You had Bill Rogers run 2:11s in New York. Alberto Salazar ran 2:08, 2:09s. few other people did that. Steve Jones ran 2:08. Times are not conducively fast at the New York City Marathon.
Correct.
The course as well, but I find that fascinating because, a few years now, guys have running 2:11, 2:12, and like 2:12 in 1983, I think got you 8th place,
Yeah.
But with the technology of shoes, you never know what happens.
Yeah.
But, Chicago and Berlin are designed specifically to be fast, especially Berlin. Berlin's like one of those courses like where, you can't fall 1.9999% below the grade, right? So they go at 1.9998. Almost like the carbon shoes, you can't go over 4%, right?
Yeah.
So, hey, look, everybody tinkers with this. I know people go nuts about the shoes. Sometimes they go nuts about the race course. But you know what? It keeps people talking, and it is what it is. And yes, I would love to know what a Sebco, Rod Dixon would run in shoes like this. Wouldn't you, right? Or a Bill Rogers, Joan Benoit, Greta
I'd love to know what we would have ran in these.
Oh, yeah. I must confess, as a 58, I run in them. I have the A6 Meta Racer. It makes a difference.
Awesome.
It's subtle, but when you cross the finish line, it makes a difference without a doubt. Okay. And just as a word of warning, one thing I've learned from my sports chiropractor, track and field people, a guy named Dr. Lee Magenheim on Staten Island is a prominent guy, and also foot podiatrist in New Jersey, Dr. Richard Braver, who years ago in Illinois treated Sebco and also treats Robbie and Josette Andrews today in New Jersey. They say the super shoe is good, but I'm getting a lot of kids coming in injured because they're training in it all
the time.
You don't do that. You save them for the race, or you save them for a time trial.
A workout, a hard workout.
Well, they're even saying for interval work, you shouldn't wear them either.
Really?
Yeah, they're causing a lot of issues with the lower extremities. And so, hey, look, maybe that's the reason some of these athletes from New York are pulling out. But two guys come to my mind, and I like them both very much. Cam Levins, is in it.
Yep.
He has moved up in distance. Once again, a favorite of mine with that idea. You never know what's going to happen. But Jersey's Ed Cheserak is in the race.
I'm excited to see Ed running.
Yeah, and he's moved up in distance. And I believe it's his marathon debut.
Yeah, I haven't seen
Is anybody going to ask, what have you been up to, Ed? Because he's been kind of disappeared.
Maybe he's just training,
Wow, and I didn't know that.
I would like to think in our sport that, if Ed is noticed, I'd like to think that there might be people in New York who will recognize him and cheer for him. Do all that, but I don't know. But like I said, it's so unpredictable. I mean, Cam Levins does have the veterans presence, somewhat of the distance. For Ed Cheserak is really the unknown quantity.
So, here's the problem in our sport. Where the hell was the media saying Ed Cheserak's back? Where is that? Even from our side, from the track and field side, where is Mile Split? Where are all of our, Flow Track, all the sources that we're supposed to go to, right? As terms of like big fans, where are they going? Because I'm pretty sure you're not the only one that knows that Ed Cheserak's running the New York City Marathon.
Well, I agree. And also, respectfully, I haven't written anything either. So,
okay. But you know what, though? Agreed. But it's like,
so sometimes it's difficult to get the athletes. Sometimes.
Right,
I don't know if that is or not. Sometimes it is. Sometimes the media just waits for the press conference, and instead of, reaching out to them earlier, prior to. So, when I do have time, because, the writing is great, but the writing is not a full-time income for me, and I got to pick and choose my battles, so to speak. When I do have time with current athletes, I always do like to try to get them way before the event. Like last June, I interviewed Courtney Freericks prior to USATFs and prior to her going forward. And one of the things that's great about Courtney, we found out Courtney's mom and grandmother were born and raised on Staten Island.
Nice.
That's awesome.
Amazing. Yeah. So it must be the water here or something.
Yeah.
But like I said, I spoke with her. Sometimes I'll reach out to athletes like way before to get preparation. I did it with Blankenship also. But like when I heard he jumped up to the marathon, I did a piece on that, that he was planning for it, training for it. What's missing in the media with our sport is the buildup, to get like major media to be like, hey, and, I'm hoping that a New York Times kind of outlet would really reach out to Ed Cheserak and write about how the Jersey boy is coming home, because I think that would be a great story. But, also athlete availability. I don't know. Sometimes you try to reach these athletes. Some of them are great. Some get back to me right away. Others never get back to me. Others say, I'll be in touch with you. Definitely.
Right.
You don't hear from them for like 3 or 4 months, And once in a while, my publisher, Larry Eder, and I, I'll lament to Larry. I'll be like, Larry said, I want to publicize these guys. And they don't get back to me.
Yeah.
Larry's like, they are who they are. Like I said, well, some get back to me right away. Others don't. Listen, it's a catch-22. Some of them don't want the pressure, but at the same time, the publicity could do them good. So they got to weigh the option. So I guess in their perception point of view, they're putting all their eggs in that one basket. Like, at this race, when I do great, then they'll be all over me. But what if they don't do great?
Then you fall into obscurity. And Tesserek, this could be a coast-to-coast story. The Oregon legend, the Jersey boy, could be a very well-covered thing. And I'm sorry.
And by the way, is he still a Skechers athlete?
I don't know. I have not heard of. I was actually, talking to my buddy the other day, like, whatever happened? Like, he was on such this prominent role in
races.
Yeah, contracts do run out, and with the news of Grant Fisher, which was mentioned, when we were just talking before.
Yeah.
Some people are saying maybe Grant will go to Ritzenheim and on, but never forget, if he has a locked-in Nike contract, right? Yeah. And Nike has that thing, I think it's called like first refusal.
Mm-hmm.
So like On could offer him something, and then he goes to Nike and says, On has offered me this. If Nike matches it, he has to stay with Nike according to it. Okay.
Right.
And, I have a perspective on it as well. Grant Fisher is also a very singularly focused young man.
Oh, yes.
He's a nice kid, and he's really nice to talk to, but he's in the zone also, like an Ingebrigtsen, like a Herb Elliott in a way, okay? He's there to fight. He's there for war, okay? Jerry Schumacher is a phenomenal coach.
Mm-hmm.
Schumacher, though, is now the coach of the University of Oregon. A lot of the Bowerman track athletes were told, hey, you got to come and live in Eugene. Some want to live there. Some don't, I bring up something that's very fascinating about the Worlds, which I didn't write about, but I have no problem talking about it. The 2 days of the Steve Prefontaine Classic this year, where, Ingebrigtsen and Neguse almost broke the world record in the mile. Like, they were right there.
Crazy.
3 miles south of the town for 2 days straight, they were doing forest burnings to control, like, the forests. You could smell it. It was in the air everywhere. And Oregon had the giant football game, same day. And in our world, as runners or fans of the sport, you got to wonder if, like, that, even that little bit of air quality, did it affect them,
100%.
Yes, and Larry Eder told me a story years ago, like, where they were actually doing that burning, not only of crops, but they were burning rubber somewhere. And Prefontaine was doing a speed workout at Haywood Field, and when he was done, he was coughing up blood.
Carcinogens. There were carcinogens in
he was coughing up blood.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, like I said, Eugene's a great town. I love it. But some people say it's a great place to race, but I don't want to live here.
Right.
And Grant Fisher, Matt Centrowitz, who went to Eugene, went to University of Oregon, the son, and others have left, and I really think that Fisher wants that hands-on, all-out, into yourself coach.
He doesn't want to share his coach with
right. That is not a bad thing, because
not at all.
Jim Spivey at Indiana ran under the great Sam Bell. Great coach. Okay. And in his first 3 years as a professional athlete for Nike, Sam Bell was still coaching him. Jim made a decision in early 1987. He was going to go with Mike Durkin, the 76 Olympian, and Ken Popejoy, the Masters runner, because he felt he needed that individualization. Yeah. And he told me, he goes, hardest decision I ever had to do was leave Sam Bell. It hurt, And he said Sam totally understood, because what was Sam Bell's focus? The college athletes.
Well, that's like we had on
with Sam Bell. He was peaking his athletes for late April, early May, NCAAs. Okay. Anything after that, USATFs, World Champs, Olympic Games, to Sam Bell was gravy, because they weren't representing the college.
Right.
Okay?
We had on Ed and Jorge Torres, and they're saying they loved Mark Wetmore.
Yeah.
But he couldn't commit to them as when they went pro, because he was still coaching at
exactly.
So it was something like they're like, hey, listen, Mark, we love you, but we have conflicting interests. You are,
right.
You
And
are
the great balance.
Right.
Yeah, the great balance. You're a college coach. Your athlete wins a gold medal. In a way, that doesn't do anything for the college.
No.
Winning NCAAs does something for the college.
Absolutely.
The board of trustees, look at that. And I always bring up this story here. Roger Bannister, we all know, is the first person to break 4 minutes for the mile.
Yes.
There is a movie called The 4 Minute Mile, which is now on YouTube. Disney movie from 30 years ago, made in Australia. It is fabulous. Okay. It is fabulous because it's factual, drama, and the actors all look like the person they're playing. They found the Roger Bannister lookalike.
That's awesome.
John Landy of Australia was trying to break it. He's in the movie. Okay.
Yep.
Guy Johansson from Sweden's in the movie.
I've seen it.
He was running 4:02 and smoking 2 packs a day, right? America had Wes Santee of Kansas.
Wes Santee, yep.
4:01. But Santee in the movie does this very well. He was a college athlete at Kansas.
Yep.
His coach, Coach Easton, a great coach. He was undefeated in relays with Wes Santee. I believe it was DMR. Okay? Kept on winning. And it got to the point where Santee conceivably could break 4 minutes before Bannister. But they were relay races. Mm-hmm. And the movie shows that there came a point where Santee told Wes, you want to go break the 4 minute mile tonight? Go for it. I'll put so-and-so on anchor at relay. And Santee looked at him, frustrated, and said, Coach, I can't let the other 3 guys down. Right. We've been undefeated. I got to run the relay. So he ran the relay and then ran the mile afterwards, running 4:04.
But that's dedication, though. That's different.
Yeah,
you don't find that anymore. You really.
Right. But then the next day in the pre-internet world, Bannister and his crew in England knew that Santee was racing that night. So they're waiting for the newspaper. Finally comes, and one of the Brits goes, why in the world would you run a relay before running in the mile?
Yeah.
But Kansas was undefeated. And, looking at us, wouldn't it have been great if the American Wes Santee was the first person to break 4 minutes for the mile? As much as Bannister.
Would have been amazing. It would have been great. And,
I think Bannister was the perfect person, though. Like, it just kind of.
He peaked. He was a peaker. He was ahead of his time. He didn't train maybe as much as some of these other people. And he worked, he's an intern as a doctor. But you look at his physical fitness as, if people really want to study physical fitness, God, Bannister, based on what he did, could he run a 3:43 mile today? I could say absolutely.
100%.
And I hate to say this, maybe faster. But then again, maybe Herb Elliott faster as well. Jim Ryan maybe faster.
Yeah.
Cole maybe faster. But Bannister also did this, and Cole brought this up. Bannister as a kid grew up in World War II when Hitler was bombing and blitzing England. There was rationing going on. What kind of food was Bannister eating between the ages of 8 and 14?
Yeah.
The growth years, So he wasn't eating good stuff.
But you know what,
factors,
though?
And
you know what, though? Thing is, they were tough as nails. And that's a huge difference. They grew up. They were tough as nails. So, yes, were they getting the most food, but were they feeling down on themselves when wartime was done? No, they survived war. They survived towns being destroyed, their livelihoods being crippled, living in bomb shelters. So, you know what? Going to run a few times around a cinder track really fast, cool. That's not that hard. I'll train. That's not that hard. Doing difficult things that we see as difficult was not very hard for that generation because, especially London, France, Germans, they survived a lot worse. All of Europe. So for them, it's like, yeah, this hurts physically, but I'm alive.
Right. But you know what, though? I still have great respect for the athletes today. They have a toughness in them as well. There is definitely mental toughness and drive and desire and stuff. And, once in a while, when you hear about an athlete going to go see a sports psychologist, I have great respect for that.
I think it's great.
There is nothing wrong with that. You have to share your innermost thoughts with somebody. Not everybody does, especially at the high levels of any sport. But you know what? If you need to vent to somebody or talk to somebody, that's not a bad thing either.
Well, yeah.
And, I think in some sense, it's almost harder now because everything is so public and everything is scrutinized.
Social media.
Everyone knows exactly what you're doing with that or the Strava, like everything is out there. So it's harder in that sense, and like you can't hide now. Like everyone knows who everyone is.
Right. It's funny you bring that up because when Steve Jones, our guest on Staten Island next week, when he broke the marathon world record, he went to the line, he ripped his watch off. He said, screw the watch.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Now,
I love it.
Record how to watch.
Now everything is like perfectly timed. You gotta,
Yeah. Listen, there's no set, structured way to achieve the best you can do with your running. I mentioned this in the previous podcast. Seb Coe was running 30 to 60 miles a week, heavy weights. Peter Snell, identical record almost, 150 miles a week.
Yeah.
It's a little bit
different physiology.
Everybody reaches the top different ways. I always say, if you buy 100% into what your coach is selling, nothing can stop you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I want to say my last piece before we have to get out of here, because Jeff, as much as I love talking to you and, you're a wealth of knowledge, and you will absolutely be coming back on this show
Thank you.
sooner than later, because we love picking your brain. When it comes to Grant Fisher, last thing, I think what people have to realize, 3K, 5K, and 10K are all his American record.
Absolutely.
He has not won a world championship yet in any of those disciplines. He's trying to be a world champion. He's trying to potentially chase after those people that are winning the world champions, and he has the ability and talent to be up there. So that's where I think his head's at right now. He's gone as far as he could with his current coach, and now he needs to go and achieve that world success. So I wish Grant all the luck.
Absolutely.
One day we'll talk to you, Grant. You'll be on this show, and hopefully we'll be able to say Grant Fisher, American record holder, here, and world champion in this year, and this year, and this year.
Gold medalist, maybe. Yeah.
Gold medalist. Yes. That's what we're hoping for. So, as always, Jeff, thank you so much for coming on the show.
No, thank you guys. Always a pleasure. Listen, please reach out to me. This is a once-in-a-lifetime night. That's what I'm hearing from people who are flying in actually from as far away as California for our dinner. Our Staten Island Hilton is booked up with this stuff. It's crazy. So
I'm honored to be there. I cannot wait. I'm just, it's going to be.
We really, besides our legends, we have who's who people from our running world, who I will mention, who are going to be there, that are just phenomenal people who also have left marks in the sport somewhere.
That's awesome. So again, he's Jeff Benjamin. He's a prolific track and field writer for Run Blog Run. If you have not visited runblogrun.com and seen his writings, if you're just a sports fan, you're missing out, because he's just a great writer in general. So go on there, read his writing. He's fantastic. And definitely the Marathon Week Legends Dinner, November 1st. It is before the, Central Park 5K. It is before the marathon that is on the 5th on that Sunday. So please go look it up. If you can't go, donate, help some kids get some free food, because that's what this is going to, and help Jeff and the Staten Island group over there continue to do what they do. So Talking in Ovals, we're here. We're always here. We'll be back next week. We'll always have another fun guest on. And, like, share, follow, subscribe, rate 5 stars, Spotify and iTunes. Spread this word of mouth. Go find us on the socials. We'll be back next week, the day before Halloween, and we'll try not to play any tricks on you. All right. So, everybody, we will be back next week. So long, all.